Absolutely. And I want to talk about your artistic vision, but let me just first dial back into tabla playing because I'm wondering if you feel the same way I've felt. I've played a lot of drum set. And
Oh wow. Great.
even after about 15, 30 minutes of playing drums, if I come back to the guitar, I feel something a little different. Like I feel like a connection rhythmically that I maybe didn't have 15 or 30 minutes ago. Do you feel that when you're playing tabla and then you get back to your guitar? Do you feel like there's some sort of rhythmic strength that you've gained?
If I recall, yeah. I mean, there's no doubt, but I can feel that also if I just clap to a metronome. I don't have to physically play an instrument. I mean, the hands are instrument, you know.
Yes.
In Qawwali music, for instance, which is Indian Pakistani music, you know, the clap they have a special clap. It's not like just this. It's there's a, there's a pop to it,
Hmm.
and so that's a real instrument also.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. You know, there's something about the drum set that might be even more interesting because you're using all the limbs at the same time.
Yeah.
But if you don't play drum set and you don't have, you know,
Access to one.
like,
Yeah.
right, if you don't have access to one, then playing with the metronome, like what I tell some of my students is get off the guitar for a while and just sing freely to a metronome
Mm.
and make sure you're marking the downbeat so you know that you're essentially within the framework of 16 beats or whatever you want
Right.
to do,
Right.
and just sing freely. Don't try. Just da 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 and rush and go behind the beat and beyond the beat on the beat and feel it with the rhythm of the metronome, and then play the guitar.
Yeah. I mean, the guitar technically is such an interesting instrument with your hands. It's not like piano where you really can be so percussive. You have to almost caress the instrument in a way, with your left hand and then learn how to articulate with the fingers. I mean, it can be a little tricky. So I think those elements that help you get into a rhythmic zone can
Yeah, no, absolutely.
certainly help
I mean,
transfer.
I'm still, even at this point, I'm still impressed with anybody who can play the guitar the way I know Perry, you're playing. I played with you, but so this is what I'm saying. I mean, when Perry and I played, it's like I remember walking away being impressed by your ability to, bring these two hands together, and let it roll, and it's sort of like not everybody can do that, but a lot more people can get to that level now. It seems like the youngsters are watching YouTube videos, and by the
Yeah.
time they're 17 or 18, they're already kind of doing that. But in your case, obviously, there's this musical heightened level that was great also, and I'm still impressed.
Wow. That definitely means a lot coming from you.
Oh, yeah.
You touched on it a little bit, but talking about your artistic vision and how composition sort of related to all that to help you sort of create your focus. The question I wanted to ask you, and I can be a little bit of a loaded question here, but in regards to the making your way in the New York scene and trying to be a sort of an original voice, and in your case, more of a modern progressive jazz guitarist on the scene, kind of in the way that people like Miles Okazaki are, or Mary Halverson. And my question is, that can be a hard road sometimes. It can be hard to not sort of fit into the box that the jazz world sort of neatly wants you to be in. What are some of the things that helped you sort of persevere through that? Because I think there are probably a lot of people listening that might want to do those kinds of things. And what can you say to sort of advice for people that want to follow that original path?
Yeah, that's a tough. You're right. It is a loaded question. I mean, it's not really a choice. And I don't want to be cliched about it, but
Sure, no.
I don't think it is a choice. For me, it's not about defining where the gauge is. I mean, if you happen to be great at playing standards, like Peter Bernstein, for instance, something like Rodney Jones, who's also very articulate at that sort of jazz vocabulary.
Hmm.
If that's where you find yourself, that's we all need that too. So it's not a matter of making a distinctive choice of what you want or where you want, but it's more about listening to cliche your heart.
Yeah.
It's connecting the mind and heart together rather than just focusing on the mind. Because sometimes I have to say, some people, you can hear some people trying too hard also.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And it's sort of like they want to be hip, so they're going there, and then you listen to their music and okay,
Yeah.
It's a mind thing. And I mean an ego thing, not ego like egotistical, but ego meaning that a needing of something, a needing to be accepted, a needing to, a need to be desired. I guess that's a ego area that we don't talk about as much. But that's the answer. I don't know if there is an answer to that other than what if you want to talk about.
No, understood. I love the notion of it's not really a choice. It's sort of just connecting, the music that you have in your heart and letting it come out. I guess I'm just wondering, in a sense, it seems like it can be more challenging to sort of start out original and not fit in that box. And at this point, you've kind of made it through. You're on Downbeat Critics polls. You're widely recognized. You're featured at New York Guitar Festival. Lots of albums under your own name. You've kind of made it through, but originally at the beginning, it might have been more difficult, I'm imagining.
Well, it still is, though. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it may look good on paper, but man, I'm struggling. I mean, in terms of, now we all are, obviously, because of the pandemic. So, but even before the pandemic, I mean, you would think this is the thing that I struggle with jazz in general as a career. And, because sometimes you get your students asking, oh man, so how do I do it to make this? And and it's, first of all, it's different for everybody, but second of all, it's like you would think the way you describe me. I mean, I don't describe myself like that, but that's fine. I'll take it. The way you describe me now with those downbeat things and the 15 records and all that, originals mostly, but that's all good. But the industry itself doesn't really always, I mean, sometimes, but most often doesn't really reward that kind of thing.
That's like, what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to get at a little bit, Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't really reward this thing. I mean, I'm still sometimes begging for gigs, and I don't do it anymore because it's like, okay, if you don't want it, you don't want it. I mean, but now just to couple that with some positivity, there are other things that happen that are much more positive also, like this Django Shift record. Peter Williams from Freight and Salvage. He recognizes, you guys have played there, right?
Yeah.
We know Peter. Yeah.
Yeah, he's incredible.
And Peter used to book Yoshis for a long time. I grew up in the Bay Area, and so I used to go to Yoshis, in the late 90s, mid 90s when I was really trying to check this stuff out, and he was curating that schedule. So he's a pretty important guy, and I think he understands the value of what you're talking about. And
I played Yoshis with him curating it a couple times. Yeah, so he's an exception to the rule, I think.
Definitely. And just to add to what you're talking about, I was curious to sort of hear you speak about how that road can be a little bit difficult when you're really putting out your original thing. I want you to know that for me, listening to it, it means so much. I love the new album. I love your vision. I love what you're doing. It's so refreshing to hear something that I haven't really heard before, and it sounds killing. Yeah, so this is your new album, Django Shift, out on Whirlwind Records. Can you talk a little bit about, you're using a Washburn steel string on most of this album, right?
No, actually, the Washburn custom shop, so it's a little bit more expensive than that. But it's a steel string, but I took off the frets. I had the frets taken off, so it's a fretless guitar. And I'm actually using that on two tunes. The other tunes, I'm using a Yamaha, believe it or not, and not to put down Yamaha, but this is a very good guitar, man. I mean, I was surprised. I rented it in the UK on a tour, and I just asked from a pawn shop, and I said, "Can I buy it from you?" And gave it to me for like $400 or something like that, and I brought it back home, and it happens to be my favorite guitar out of, I've tried many expensive guitars, and this thing just resonates. I mean,
let's play a track here. This is the third track from the album. I think it's called Heavy Artillery. Now, these are most of the songs on the album are rarely known Django Reinhardt songs that you sort of reimagined with your trio. It's a really great concept. And here's a little bit of Heavy Artillery from Reza Abbasi's album Django Shift. Man, I love that.
Yes, you don't get Django out of that, but that was sort of the tag out of the whole tune.
Yeah.
I wanted to feature the keyboard player on that particular tune more, so I was just kind of riffing at the end. But yeah, it's interesting. It's hard to hear yourself, but you know how it is.
Oh, totally. But part of the reason I wanted to play that track is because you have such a beautiful touch with your right hand. It's not like you're digging in too hard, but you're articulating everything really clearly. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, it's really hard to kind of keep that sort of balance and soft touch when you're rolling and playing with a band. So you did it so well. It sounds so great on that, you know?
It's interesting you say that, because that was a difficult solo for me. I did a few takes with the band. I mean, I don't really overdub anything. It's sort of like let's do another take. And I remember one or two other takes I really didn't like, and I struggled with exactly what you're saying, to put everything on the table here, which is like, the drummer, because in the headphones, man, recording is such a pain to sometimes. In the headphones, you have the drums to the level where he's hitting hard, right?
Yeah.
And it's not too loud, but it's like medium, and it's like you can really hear it. Then on a soft part like this, the drums come so down on the headphones, it's like you're barely hearing anything. So you're trying to communicate with the drummer at the same time. You want to be in the pocket, and at the same time you're trying to say something and not overpick. So this was because you can't pick too hard when you can barely hear the drums, right?
Yeah.
So on this particular tune, it's interesting you played that. That was probably the hardest solo of the whole record for me.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, because of exactly what you said.
Wow.
Because you got to pick very lightly, and yet you want to project, but you don't want to overpick, or you don't want to underpick. And it's that weird middle ground that's almost surprising in the middle of a studio session. Like, oh shoot, man, this is.
It sounds so good. I want to play one more clip from this record before I pass it off to John. I know he has some questions for you, as does Will. This is from the first track on the album. This is Diminishing, which is a Django tune, which I didn't know any of these Django tunes. I got to go, after I've listened to your album, which I'm like 90% through, I'm going to go back and listen to some of these Django tunes, and then I'm going to get the full picture. I'm pretty stoked about that.
You should listen to the originals, man.
Yeah.
Well, I had to.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, but I listened to like hours of Django for like a couple weeks, and just which tunes do I want? Which tune? And there's a ton of them, man. It's like, woo.
Some deep cuts too. That's really cool.
7 or 9 of them I picked,
Here's one more track from Django Shift from Reza Abbasi. This is Diminishing. This is a little clip from it here. Let's play this in.
Right.